When someone walks into my gym, I observe them. I observe how they stand, how they walk, how they lift. And what I usually see is that they are dominant in their quadriceps, which is a problem. So why is it a problem? Dominance in one muscle means an imbalance in another muscle. Something too strong makes something else too weak in relationship to it. And this will harm your performance. It can also increase your risk of injury to your ankles, knees, hips, and even lower back. So, how do I spot this? The clearest sign is often being female. A lot of women are dominant in their quadriceps, especially sporty women. So if I'm observing them, I will usually see this, where their quads are tight and they might be slouching a little bit. So they're basically standing on the front of their feet, using their calves and their quadriceps, but not using their hamstrings, their glutes, or their lower back muscles. So I know this looks a little weird, and it looks weird to me too, but will feel normal to a lot of people. Your brain will normalize almost anything. So if this is incorrect, what's correct? This. Ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, ears, all more or less in one line. Okay, other signs. Pronation. So that means collapsing in the ankles. But why is that happening? With the quads over tensing, or tensing all the time, that will spin the femurs inwardly, which rotates the entire leg inwardly, which causes the ankles to collapse. But what happens are the calves adapt to that, and the shin muscles are weak. So the shin muscles are not strong enough to hold the arch and to hold the knees in a forward-facing position. Also, this kind of slouching, yes, it can be an indication of sedentary behavior, or it can just be weak butt, weak hamstrings, weak back muscles, all of which are really important to develop. Now, what can we see when someone's moving? Essentially, someone will walk with their feet turning out. They will walk with their quadriceps, primarily. Now, what do you mean, walk with your quadriceps? Of course you're going to walk with your quadriceps, but observe this. It'll make sense. If I take a step and shift weight to that foot, and take another step and shift weight to that foot, I am walking only with half the step. And I'm not walking with my butt. I'm not walking with my hamstrings. I am simply doing half the step. Well, what do you mean, half the step? Well, what about the pushing off, right? So if I take a step and I push off with my rear foot, that engages my hamstrings and my glutes, and also tends to push my torso upwards. Sorry, let's see, incorrect again, right? So I'm walking only with half of the step. My feet are turning out. That kind of duck walk is a very strong indication of quadriceps dominance. All right, now if I walk with my butt, I will be upright and I will walk faster because I am using more muscle to push against the ground. So you can test for this, walk around, see how it feels. If you're not using your butt, that's a problem. You want to use your butt. Another indication of someone that is dominant in the quadriceps is indicated when they squat. So instead of sending the knees out and being able to drop all the way here with no problem, they will be stuck. And why? Because they don't have that glute strength to open up the hips. That tension is going into the adductors, so their knees are squeezing in, and then it's going into the hip flexors, and that's locking them up. and they don't have enough glute strength to drop all the way into a full natural primate squat. Also, when you see them jump, and you can test this, get in front of a mirror and jump. If your knees go in like that, which just feels awful to do, then they're trying to power that movement with the quadriceps and the adductors, which is not the way it should be. It should be the quads and the glutes. So it's another indication. If you take a look at your average program, whatever program you might be on at the moment, look at each of the exercises and identify the major muscles that are being worked, right? Now, if it's squats, it's primarily thighs. Maybe a little bit of glute in there if you can even fire your glutes. So take a look at your program and see if it's dominant in calves and quadriceps. You will find in a lot of aerobics class programming that is the case because it's easy to program for jumping around, lunging, using the stair stepper. When working the glutes would involve maybe lying down, doing lying hip abduction, or doing Romanian deadlifts or kickbacks. There are a few exercises, but there aren't that many to just target the glutes and the hamstrings. But it's more important for most people to develop the shin muscles, to develop the shin muscles, the hamstrings, and the glutes, okay? Especially the gluteus medius. If you have a chronic and deep imbalance insofar as quadriceps dominance, what are the consequences? One, more likely to roll your ankle because the shin muscles are weak and the gluteus medius is weak. And therefore, if you're playing tennis or soccer and you go to stop, you don't have that strength on the outer line. You could roll your ankle or you could fall down. Another is poor balance. Are you able to balance? If you're just using your quadriceps, your femur will spin inward, turning off your glutes, and you will be less stable. That stability comes from this lateral posterior line, okay? Another consequence is overactive hip flexors. So if one thing is too strong, then it puts something else out of balance. That is called altered reciprocal inhibition. Essentially what it means is if your brain is sending the go signal to one set of muscles, it's sending a stop signal to the complementary or opposing muscles. So in this case, if my quads are really on, then my hip flexors are really on, and that is turning off my hamstrings and turning off my glutes. Now your glutes are super important for many, many things, especially just having good posture. So if my hip flexors are really tight, and then I try to go run, and I'm not running by pushing off with my glutes, if I'm just doing this, just bringing my knees up and not actually pushing through when I run, then that's just going to make all of that so much stronger and so much tighter. And so some of the runners I've worked with, they will have a cramp in their hip flexors or their TFL, or they'll just have kind of mediocre performance. Or they will also experience like a high rate of impact because hamstrings are your force absorbers, quadriceps are your force producers, along with the glutes. So look at how you run as well.